Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Conversations with Danae, your family law and wellness needs. I am attorney Danae Matthews. I am a wife, a mother, and the owner of a boutique family law firm, the Dunn Matthews Law Firm in Metro Atlanta. I started this series as a way to educate, empower, and enlighten individuals around the world regarding their family law matters and their normal wellness needs as they intertwine on a day-to-day basis. Last month, we had Jen Jonassaint of Jen Inspiring Coach join us on the show, and we talked about the power of financial health, and we dug deep into things that are causing people problems when it comes to their financial health and things they don't recognize and problems from their past as children and what they saw their parents do and how that has affected them as an adult. We spoke about budgeting or creating a spending plan, and how that will place you in a position to be able to flourish as it relates to your finances and your financial health. And so tonight, this conversation will be much shorter than our standard conversation when we have a guest. I very briefly just wanted to talk tonight about very specifically how your finances can affect your family law matter. And so when we look at a domestic case, whether it's divorce case or a child support matter, the party's finances are a huge role in that, right? And so when we're talking about a divorce and whether or not we should divide houses and grant alimony and retirement accounts, all of those things, the court is going to look at and consider each person's ability to earn an income and what their earnings currently are if they're already employed. In addition to that, here in Georgia, the court is also going to look at, consider, and think about what the person's expenses are. Are they going to, get a new home? Do they already have a place to live? And what does that rent or mortgage look like? More specifically, they're going to look into what do you already have going for you from a financial standpoint that is going to help you moving forward, or what's going to help you move your children forward. And so a part of being able to do that, obviously, is to know your own money, know what you have, know what you can do, know how far you can stretch and bend. Or is your income very stringent and tight and on a check-to-check basis? Those things are going to be important. And how can one expect the court to make decisions about their financial well-being when they themselves don't know what their finances look like? And so it's very important to dig deep into that and know prior to filing your action, even in the midst of filing your action, if things change, know what that looks like, and create a outline for yourself, a budget, a spending plan for yourself. I don't care if you're using Excel or some other format. You've got to be able to do it and be able to effectively communicate that to the court as to what you're needing. I know one thing that people kind of sometimes often come to me about and their concern is child support, right? And so whether they are the paying or receiving party, child support becomes something that is very, it creates a time frame where people are worried about whether or not they're going to be able to properly support their children. And so that could entail lots of things, and people don't understand that child support is just not necessarily about the incomes. It is most certainly a numbers game here in Georgia, but there are so many other expenses and circumstances that play a role in a child support determination. And that, again, is why it's extremely important to know and understand what your finances look like. Okay. And so child support can entail the child's medical expenses. Are the parties going to split the child's medical expenses? Those are things like co-pays and medicines and braces and all of those things, surgeries that may come up. How is that going to work? And the court does consider that and divvies up that responsibility based on the party's income and their ability to do so, right? And so Again, knowing your budget and your finances is going to be important for that. Your children's extracurricular activities, listen, extracurricular activities are expensive. They are expensive. I don't care whether your child is doing a travel team or if they're doing a league in their city or the county that you're living in. It is expensive. Regardless of the sport, it is so expensive. But knowing what those expenses are from a year-to-year basis, especially if you have children who bounce between activities, is going to be important in doing that. The other thing that we often hear is childcare expenses. Childcare expenses is a mortgage payment for most people, depending upon the age of your child. And so making sure that you are aware of what that looks like for you. If your child is not already in aftercare program or in some form of daycare, especially with COVID having just been a full ramp up. Now we're kind of, hopefully anyways, dying down on that. But making sure that you know, when are you going back into work, right? A lot of companies are requiring their employees to start coming back into work. And that in itself is going to probably prompt you to have to pay for childcare expenses. Well, what does that look like from a financial perspective? Does it fit into your budget? Can you afford it? Do you need to seek a modification of your child support because it was granted in April or May of 2020? And back then, there were no childcare expenses because no one was going anywhere. So do you need to seek a modification for that reason to make sure that your budget and to make sure that you can still provide for your children and the care that they need while you go out in search of work and furthering yourself in that way? And so you're going to want to make sure that you understand your circumstances. Because if you don't understand them, again, no one else can. The judge cannot, your attorney cannot. And so it's going to be very important that you do that. One of the most important things, I think we spoke about this with Jen Jonassaint last month, is being honest with yourself, right? Knowing what holds me back. Do I have a money mindset issue? Do I not know how to budget well because I was not taught that? And quite honestly, if you're in the millennial range or even a little older than that, 40s and maybe even 50s, your parents didn't really speak about money more often than not. And so do you have that educational piece that's going to help you push yourself forward and making sure that your finances are in order? Are you speaking positive money mantras and affirmations to yourself? If you are not doing that, then your finances are not going to be able to change because you're always going to have a negative connotation with money. And so making sure that you are doing that, making sure that you are buying into yourself, whether that is using a financial coach like Jen from last month, whether that is looking at your online banking and paying attention to what you're spending your money on. Most banks have that feature nowadays where you can look at your online banking and determine, am I spending too much money on monthly subscriptions? Am I eating out too much like me? Like, what are you doing that is affecting your money situation? And so I want to make sure that everyone is doing that and is cognizant of how you are moving from a financial perspective. So often we get bogged down on the fact that, life is just moving. We have credit at our disposal. We've got credit cards. We've got loans at our disposal. And we really aren't sitting and stopping and thinking about the fact that our lives are one day going to change from a financial perspective. We are not going to be able to work the same way we used to. If COVID has taught us anything, it's that our lives can change from one day to the next. And that includes whether or not we are employed, whether or not our business is making money, whether or not we are able to feed our families and provide. And so it's very important that we do that, even in the course of, and more importantly, in the course of litigation, because you're going to need to make sure that, one, you can afford the litigation, right? And that what you're requesting of the court in your divorce or your child support matter is what is reasonable, what you actually need, and if you are the paying party, what you can afford to pay. If you have been following us for a while, you know that we are doing these on a monthly basis. And in October, we started talking about finances. In December, we will continue the talk with finances with our next guest, and dive a little bit into life insurance and how important it is to make sure that you are covering yourself and your family by way of having a life insurance policy. There are numerous different types of policy. And last month with Jen, we kind of touched very on the surface of what those things are and the different options that you have, and being able to pull out for your children's college, and just making sure that you are setting your children up for success, and not having to worry about how are they going to then bury you when you are no longer with us. And so we will continue our talk about getting your financial life and well-being together next month on Conversations with Danae, Your Family Law and Wellness Needs. But I did want to come on this month very briefly. It's a holiday month, and next month it will be a short episode as well with our guest for December, just for the fact that we are in the holiday season and we want to respect everyone's time, but also give you the content that you have asked for and that we want to make sure that you receive by way of this platform. I want to also remind everyone that tomorrow night, November the 18th at 6:00 p.m., we will be hosting a webinar with attorney Katera Nelson of the law office of Katera H. Nelson. We will be discussing family law and criminal law and how those two things intertwine. If you have not registered for the webinar, please do so. There's content on our social media pages. There's links in our bios so that you can make sure that you are registered. Registration is open until right before the event starts. We want to make sure that we do not leave anyone out. And so we're going to be talking about TPOs and how they can affect your custody determination or your divorce action. We'll be talking about battery, family violence cases, and how the sentencing of those, as well as just having them in general, can affect your family law matter. And so I want to make sure that you are informed of that. If you've missed one of our posts, make sure that you go into our bio, click the link in our bio, and register for that webinar. It will be an awesome time. It will be 1 hour. We're not going to keep y'all long on a Thursday evening, but just make sure that you are registering for that tomorrow night. All right, everybody have a good evening. I wish you guys the best.